What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about manifestation and everything to do with how I've seen it work and some things that I've learned to understand it best, and also why it's honestly not necessarily in everyone's best interests to know how to use it to a certain degree without understanding the bigger picture of how and when it's going to serve you and when it's not. So I'm going to start off with the actual best way that I've been able to understand it through playing some music on my guitar, because I'm a musician and it's been something that I was initially attracted to express myself. And at first, I play chords and there was something that resonated with me, and I started to understand vibration through playing music, simply through the idea of, right now when I'm speaking to you, I'm using my throat, I'm vibrating my vocal cords, which is causing a sound. These strings on this guitar are vibrating when I pluck them, and then that vibration is amplified within the whole of the guitar and the body of the guitar to create resonance and vibration. And then I started to understand in about 2023 how our actual bodies, separate from instruments, are our own instrument in a way. And this is what I want to explain and how this relates to manifestation. So let's say our thoughts, every single thought we ever have, but let's say our thoughts are the chord of the guitar. So that's the particular shape that we hold, okay? The strumming of that chord is how much we feel the idea in our bodies, creating an emotional response. So let's say I think about, buying a house or being a millionaire or things that I desire. It's not so much I don't actually want to be a millionaire, I just want to not have to work forever in my life and do things that I don't believe in or agree with. So let's say buying a house and owning it outright. If I think about that thought, that's the chord, and the emotional response of the emotional feeling in my body through focusing on that thought of freedom and of joy and love for this thing that is mine, that I can have exactly how I like. That emotion is the resonance in the body of the guitar. And the idea with manifestation, according to Joe Dispenza, according to pretty much all the people talking about manifestation at the moment, is that vibration of the thought in our bodies is attractive. It has a certain amount of power to attract in your external reality those conditions. That's the idea behind manifestation. And in the same sense, how it makes sense with the guitar, for instance, is I can think of something really sad, for instance, and feel that in the body. And that's the same as holding, a minor chord, like an A minor. So the thought creates a different emotion in the body. And being aware of your thoughts and how you feel into each of them is the whole idea behind manifestation, and what you would ultimately like to see in your life as something that you should continuously focus on. Whether you want it to be happy, romantic, or whether you want it to be dramatic, or whether you want it to be mysteriously tragic, is all up to what we think about and how we feel into those thoughts. But here's the point that I really want to make about manifestation, because When I first discovered this information, it absolutely blew my mind. I was like, let's go. I'm going to go so far down this rabbit hole because this is probably the most powerful knowledge I've ever learned in my life, because essentially it gave me control over what I chose to believe was true. Because all thoughts, all ideologies are a combination of different ideas put together. And before that point, I was just walking around in my life thinking that what I had believed to be true based on my experiences was true. And that was the first time I was set free from that notion. And it basically gave me this insane sense of freedom. And I spent days and days with my eyes closed focusing on what I wanted at the time. But this is where it gets more complex and more challenging to navigate this kind of information, is the ego comes into it. And whatever your ego at the time desires, which is not a negative thing, and we have to follow our desires to a certain degree until we see through them, and then we can evolve into more pure desires. But at the time, I was focusing on all these things, and then I was having to come back to reality. And I noticed after a while that I had a bias to always trying to feel good. And what I've learned since then, and what I think ultimately is the only flaw that I can find in what Joe Dispenza, and I don't know if you've seen what Joe Dispenza talks about in terms of manifestation, but he's got some amazing information and has done some beautiful things for the world, and I'm super supportive of what he does. The only thing that I don't support is, at least with my own approach to it, was I noticed that I was only ever trying to feel good with it, and essentially rejecting the negative emotions and the bitter part of life. We call life a bittersweet symphony, and I think that's true. So when you start to open up the bitter parts, they are essential too, because that is how you learn to, first of all, not hurt people around you. If you're just trying to feel good all the time, and this is something that I have done many times in my life, you're not going to be willing to hear how you've hurt somebody if it makes you feel bad, if you're stuck in this idea that, oh no, I'm manifesting only good things in my life, so therefore that can't be true, and I'm not going to take on board what you're feeling. I'm not going to be empathetic of how you feel and feel into those negative feelings myself and learn from them and grow, unless I understand that ultimately everything needs to be felt. And this is the whole thing about manifestation and the ego, is that what we think we want most of the time is just a projection of our mind and what we have as a desire at the time, and not necessarily coming from a deeper, more pure place behind our ego that's leading us towards a greater understanding, a greater level of freedom. And that's what I have seen time and time again within myself and with all the musicians and rock stars that I've had the chance to tour and support. One particular 2018, I was going all around Europe with this artist, and we had played a show in Barcelona, and we had a day off the next day, so we stayed in that hotel. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the big high-rise it's the only high-rise building in Barcelona, and it's on the beach, right on the water. And he was put up in the second highest level of the high-rise. And I went up and hung out with him for a little bit, and we were standing out on the balcony looking out over Barcelona, like, I don't know, 30 floors up. And it was an insane view. And I just remember him saying to me, you know what, man? I can't even enjoy this, because look up above us. And then he pointed to the one level above him. He said, I can't enjoy this because I want that. And this is the ego. This is an unhealthy desire, not based on freedom, not based on love, not based on pure intention, but more so materialistic gain. And that's where understanding manifestation, I actually, in my own personal experience for the last 3 years that I've been aware of this and have been applying it, it doesn't actually even work. It hasn't worked for me. Focusing on financial abundance is fine. It's a really good thing, but it's equally important to focus on life, and I think what the real conditions of your life that you want, because so many people do just want money, and then they do horrible things and live a horrible life to get the money. Not saying that's the only way to get money, but if your only goal is to have money and have copious amounts of it, then you're most likely going to end up doing shit you hate for it. And in my opinion, that is so not how I feel about manifestation. I think having a clear intention of what you would like in your life and what you're willing to do to get it is more important. And I'm going off on a massive tangent here, but basically at the end of the day, checking in with something higher than yourself and letting that steer the course of your life, in my opinion, is ultimately going to lead you towards what you really need and not what you think you want at the moment. Because even last year, I had all these massive goals and goals of being successful in different ways as an artist and as a musician in my career. And it's all fine. It's good to have desires. It's good to have direction, but setting one step in front of the other and just walking towards whatever is the deepest part of yourself, in my opinion, is the ultimate way to manifest what you actually need, and not more of the things that are not going to serve you. So it's very complex, because yes, you can understand manifestation, you can understand how it works, but what is the real intention? Is it coming from insecurity? Is it coming from, I want to look better, so I need to do all of this shit. I need to, spend all this money so I can look better, or, I need to spend all this money on this new music, so, I need to do all this for the music, and then that, and then now I've got all of this kind of like conditions on what needs to happen for me to be happy, rather than facing these things within yourself, facing the insecurity that makes you think you need those things, and just sitting in that, understand it until you can grow out of it. And ultimately you will find the freedom that you thought that thing externally happening in the world was going to give you anyway. So really, manifestation has nothing to do with the external conditions of what you think you need to replace how you feel inside. Which brings me back to the guitar. You don't play music to get a reaction when you're doing it for the purest of reasons. You do it because it helps you release and connect with something that you're attracted to. And when you play music purely for attention, which I have many times in my life, you will have things to deal with. But when you play music for the purity of what it does for you, and seek to share that from that place, then you've built a solid foundation. Anyway, there's lots to think about, but hope this video helped you in some way. And yeah, that's all I can ask. More coming. Big love, everyone.